A truce is coming very soon. Putin and Trump discussed a ceasefire in Ukraine. Volodymyr Zelensky has responded. Ukrainian defenders hinted that the Kerch Bridge's days are numbered. The AFU destroyed the boats guarding the crossing. Russian territory continues to burn under attack, specifically a plant that is part of Russia's military-industrial complex. In one of Russia's regions, a warning was issued about an accident involving the release of a hazardous substance. Washington announced funding for Kyiv while King Charles III expressed full support for Ukraine. Meanwhile, a coup is being prepared in Russia. The main instigator is Prime Minister Mishustin. This is News Today. I am Eva Nikolashvili. Like and subscribe because we are starting now. A truce is coming very soon. And Ukraine is ready, but we need to know the details. Volodymyr Zelensky ordered to find out the details of Putin's proposal for a truce on May 9th and also proposed a long-term ceasefire in return. According to Volodymyr Zelensky, he ordered contact with the US president's team regarding a possible truce. And he emphasized once again, Ukraine strives for peace.
Ukraine strives for peace and provides the necessary diplomatic work for a real end to this war. We will find out what exactly this is about. A few hours of safety for the parade in Moscow or something more. Our proposal is a long-term ceasefire to ensure reliable security for the people and a lasting peace. Ukraine is ready to work for this in any worthy and effective format.
Putin and Trump discussed a truce over the phone yesterday. The conversation itself claims the Russian dictator's aide Ushakov lasted more than 1.5 hours. According to the dictator's aide, Putin told Trump he was ready to declare a truce. Guess when? Of course, May 9th.
Notably, former President Donald Trump, in a recent statement, spoke positively about the Easter truce that was recently declared by Russia. In this regard, Vladimir Putin informed his American colleague of his readiness to declare a truce for the Victory Day celebrations as well. Trump actively supported this initiative, noting that the holiday marks our common victory over Nazism in World War II.
After the Russians, the White House also commented on the phone call. However, here the American president claimed that the truce initiative came from him.
I had a long conversation with Vladimir Putin. I proposed a short ceasefire, and I think he might go for it. You know, I asked him about a short ceasefire, because so many people are dying. It's just absurd.
The Ukrainian Navy reported a new successful strike. On the night of April 30th, boats guarding the Kerch Bridge came under attack. As a result of the attack, an FSB patrol boat, the Sobol and a Grakonok-class anti-saboteur boat were hit. The Ukrainian military noted that these boats are key units of the FSB border service and the Russian Navy's Coast Guard, used to protect the Kerch Bridge and fight saboteurs. Russian territory was also under attack on Thursday night. Drones attacked Dzerzhinsk in the Nizhny Novgorod region. According to social media reports, the Sverdlov explosives plant was likely the target. Specifically, explosions were heard near the plant and a plume of smoke was seen later. The Sverdlov plant is part of Russia's military-industrial complex and is strategically important for the Kremlin. The enterprise is considered one of the largest producers of explosives in Russia, with over a century of history and great significance for the country's industry. Perm was also under attack during the night. This time the strike was carried out against Lukoil Pemnefteorg Syntes. As a result of the attack, a primary oil refining unit caught fire at the facility. After the explosion in Perm, warnings about an accident involving the release of a hazardous substance began to sound. Attention! Accident involving the release of a potentially hazardous substance. Please immediately close all windows and doors tightly. In addition, a fire continues to rage at a key hub of the region's oil pipeline infrastructure in Perm. The station is part of the Transneft Prikamye system and serves several main oil pipelines connecting Western Siberia, the Volga region, and Western oil transport routes. Radio Liberty published the first satellite image after the strike. It shows that at least 2 fuel tanks are engulfed in flames. In images of the site before the drone attack, OSINT analysts counted 6 large and 4 smaller tanks for storing petroleum products. In Tuapse, a gas filling station that provides gas to 60% of the city's homes burned down after a drone attack, Rossiyskaya Gazeta reports. According to the local gas company, the entire liquefied gas tank farm was destroyed, and there is no way to deliver gas to the storage tanks of apartment buildings. None. The tanks connected to the houses are filled about once a month, so the current supplies there will be enough, for some time. Though for how long, no one is giving any forecasts.
In Tuapse, due to the fire at the refinery, dozens of homes are also without water. Children are not attending schools or kindergartens. Neither local authorities nor Putin could ignore the consequences of the third strike. How did officials find a way to extinguish the burning tanks? Let's see more.
The head of the Krasnodar region reported to Putin that there are no serious threats to Tuapse. Meanwhile, the resort town's new landmark, the Tuapse volcano, or simply the blazing refinery, is visible for hundreds of kilometers.
This is just insane.
And while TASS publishes videos of a volcanic eruption in Hawaii, residents of the Krasnodar region are posting explosions at the blazing oil refinery, one of Russia's main export oil arteries, on local social media.
A tank burst, it's hot standing near the window. Everything's leaking. That's it. The whole refinery's gone.
Blazing oil products have even spread to nearby streets. After Mordor manifested itself within the borders of Tuapse and the fire spread to houses adjacent to the plant, authorities declared a local state of emergency. 60 Russians have already been evacuated. They were housed in a school and fed pasta with meat.
We were welcomed very well, they feed us, and there is a place for us to sleep and rest. Of course, it's a huge tragedy, huge, and we're grateful to our government for what the guys are doing for us, ordinary mortals, as they say. They're putting out these fires. It's very dangerous.
The consequences of the third attack in April on the plant could no longer be ignored by the governor of the Krasnodar region. On site, like an experienced crisis manager, he gave valuable advice to the rescuers.
Flammable oil spread to the road. Several cars and several structures were damaged.
Is the situation under control now? Yes, we're controlling it now. Everything possible must be done to save people's lives and health. Exactly, that's all? However, in reality, his visit on the ground was seen from a different perspective than that of Kondratyev's PR team.
Governor Kondratyev visited yesterday. They quickly filmed a 1-minute clip. He approached the volunteers, didn't show the beach, of course. But all the local channels are broadcasting Patriarch Kirill giving him another medal.
The awkwardness of the governor's situation is due to a personal meeting with Putin in early April, just before the Ukrainian drone attacks on Tuapse.
Kuban Governor Veniamin Kondratyev reported to Putin that there were no serious threats to Tuapse from the fire at the local refinery. That's quite understandable. After a search of Kondratyev's 1 billion ruble estate, he solemnly promised Putin that all Kuban beaches would be open this year and there would be a normal swimming season. However, Kondratyev himself prefers not to linger in Tuapse for now.
Even Putin himself could no longer ignore what was happening. Indeed, the fearsome dictator, whose rating is plummeting, bleated out the following.
This won't change anything, but there are threats and they are growing, as I've already said. Drone strikes are increasingly being carried out against civilian infrastructure. Here's the latest example: strikes on energy facilities in Tuapse, which could potentially cause environmental consequences, serious ones. Actually, the governor just reported that he is on the scene. Well, at least he was there a couple of hours ago. It seems there are no serious threats. No, and people on the ground are coping with the challenges they face.
The only thing that changed after such an intervention by the leader was the arrival of Emergency Situations Minister Kurenkov in the Krasnodar region, who also handed out valuable instructions to local rescuers.
The situation is difficult but under control at this moment in time. We have now familiarized ourselves with all the circumstances. There are plans in place that will be implemented around the clock. Work is ongoing. We are monitoring the situation. I think that in the near future there will be certain results.
In Tuapse, where authorities claim there are no serious problems, dozens of streets were left without water supply due to the shutdown of pumps at the oil refinery. Locals are advised not to go outside due to high concentrations of benzene in the air. Meanwhile, Perm has taken over the relay of colorful images from TUAPs. Defense forces attacked major oil refineries in the region. Analysts report that the supplies will be enough for several days of burning. Ukraine has received mobile F-16 simulators for pilot training. There are only a few of them in the world due to their high cost. This was stated by Ukraine's Minister of Defense, Mikhailo Fedorov. According to him, to increase the efficiency of intercepting aerial targets, it's necessary to improve pilot training and reduce the time from training to combat use. Receiving mobile simulators in addition to stationary ones is an opportunity to continuously train our pilots, effectively transitioning to NATO standards in their training. The minister added that the simulators were developed specifically for Ukrainian requirements and technical specifications, taking into account Ukraine's geographical features. Their key advantage is precisely their mobility. The simulators can be moved quickly, which is critical for pilot safety under constant attack.
The US has announced new aid for Ukraine. We're talking about $400 million, which was approved by Congress back in December 2025. According to Pentagon Chief Pete Hegseth, the funds were released to Ukraine on April 28th. This announcement followed an angry op-ed by former Senate Republican leader Mitch McConnell in the Washington Post. In the article, the American politician slammed the US Defense Department for delaying these funds. He stated that the aid package had bipartisan support and couldn't understand why the money was still gathering dust at the Pentagon. But there's another coincidence. The release of funds coincided with a US visit by the King of the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland. During his address to Congress, Charles III spoke directly about his support for Ukraine. This is rare for a monarch, but it seems the king is changing the rules.
His speech in the US Senate brought Democrats to their feet in a standing ovation. Trump never managed to do that. The words of British King Charles III were dedicated to Ukraine. The monarch called for preparations for war with Russia to protect the bravest of people, the Ukrainians.
Following the events of September 11, 2001, when NATO invoked Article 5 for the first time and the UN Security Council stood united against terror, we met that challenge together. Shoulder to shoulder, we've endured 2 world wars, the Cold War, Afghanistan, and other defining moments for our collective security. Today, decisive action is needed to protect Ukraine and its most courageous people.
The monarch visited Washington and met with the US president amid the strained relationship between Trump and British Prime Minister Starmer. Politico reports that King Charles issued a veiled challenge to Trump regarding Ukraine and NATO.
The king went even further, linking that pivotal moment in 2001 to the need for Western unity in supporting Ukraine during the ongoing war. The king's stance is a stark contrast to Trump's relentless criticism of Ukraine and President Volodymyr Zelensky, whom Charles has met privately several times over the past few years. This passage is a direct appeal to Trump and congressional Republicans to maintain American support in the fight against the Russian invasion.
King Charles, well, he's openly supporting Ukraine. He's openly bringing up the issue of Ukraine. I'm sure he's raising this Ukraine issue in the US Congress right now, and that he did so in his talks with Trump, as he does constantly. And the British public views this quite favorably. There's a nice understanding there. They realize that this is indeed the right dialogue.
Since the start of the full-scale invasion, Great Britain has provided Ukraine with more than £13 billion in military aid. And in 2026, this aid will amount to another £3 billion. A week earlier, the Ministry of Defense of the Foggy Albion announced the delivery of at least 120,000 drones to Ukraine. This includes both reconnaissance and cargo UAVs, and long-range strike drones.
This large batch of combat-proven drones will give Ukrainian troops the necessary capabilities to protect their people and repel Russian aggression. John Healey, UK Secretary of State for Defense.
This is far from a complete list of military aid from the British government. Also, London, together with its allies, is considering the possibility of creating a new financial mechanism, a so-called defense bank, which will help Northern European countries rearm faster amid the threat from Russia. This defense bank includes the UK itself, Norway, Finland, Sweden, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, Denmark, Iceland, and the Netherlands. And in the event of a US withdrawal from NATO or a weakening of its role in the alliance, European countries are preparing to withstand a Russian strike without the United States and are already successfully helping Ukraine.
In the Russian Federation, they also couldn't ignore the British King's speech, but the reaction came not from the Kremlin, but from the front. And suddenly accused Putin of betraying Russian interests to please the West. The so-called military blogger Yuri Kotonok lashed out at his own government. He is outraged that his Tsar is silent and doesn't react in any way, although, according to the Z Patriot, he should have already declared war.
The speech in Congress is significant. We, albeit not in a directly provocative way, but with monarchical delicacy, have been declared an enemy, the very evil that the West simply must crush. Without Russia's defeat, the development of the West, judging by these plans, seems impossible. Many are already drawing analogies with examples from the past. Some note that Russian Tsars declared mobilization after such things, completely cutting off contacts with those who intended to fight us. These are deceitful times. Those at the top remain silent. The comments of speakers who review the situation twice a day are drowning in a sea of information. Unambiguous attacks by top officials are answered by top officials. History has never seen such a state of affairs.
Meanwhile, Putin himself graced Don with his attention. The day before, the Kremlin published an extremely short video of the dictator's meeting with Kadyrov. At the start of the meeting, the Russian president is full of jokes. Ramzan looks energetic but can't string two words together without a piece of paper.
Thank you for finding the time to meet with me. Thanks to your personal attention and support, the socio-economic development of the region maintains a steady momentum.
A social media page close to the security forces reports that this meeting took place with only one goal: to secure public confirmation that Ramzan will remain the head of Chechnya for another term. Elections in the region will take place as early as September. Don's inner circle is spreading information that Putin supports Kadyrov's candidacy. Let me remind you, until recently there were rumors that Ramzan Kadyrov was terribly ill and the Kremlin was preparing a replacement for him.
A coup in the Kremlin? The main instigator is Prime Minister Mishustin. Perhaps it is him that the elites opposed to Putin see as a successor. Details follow. Putin will be removed soon. They are secretly preparing to overthrow the Russian dictator.
I just know from talking to various people, including those from the administration, from the government, they actually all secretly hate Putin.
This is Ilya Remezlo, a former Kremlin activist and author of denunciations against the opposition. In an interview with Ksenia Sobchak, he says some shocking things.
In my deep conviction, within this 1 year, that is the end of 2026, the beginning of 2027, we will have very global changes. And it's not just me saying this, but also quite systemic people, for example, such as Gennady Zhuganov.
If you do not urgently take measures, financial, economic, and others, then by autumn, we will face what happened in 1917. We have no right to repeat this.
Until recently, Remezlo publicly supported the war against Ukraine, but in March, everything changes abruptly. On his Telegram channel, he begins to publish anti-war posts, demands Putin's resignation, and calls him an illegitimate president.
5 reasons why I stopped supporting Vladimir Putin. First, the war in Ukraine. Second, huge damage to the Russian economy and the well-being of citizens. Third, the stifling of internet and media freedom. Fourth, Putin's term in power. Fifth, Putin does not respect his voters and does not want to hear them. Bottom line, Vladimir Putin is not a legitimate president. Vladimir Putin must resign and be put on trial as a war criminal and a thief. Long live freedom, damn it.
Immediately after such revelations, the loyal blogger was thrown into a psychiatric hospital.
It's safer there.
But most importantly, the Russian leadership has long lost even the appearance of unity. Inside, only accumulated fatigue and irritation flourish, and the reason is that resources have shrunk, opportunities have decreased, and control has become tighter. And now, when the system no longer provides the previous bonuses, conflicts begin to accumulate within it.
It will be something like a palace coup, a revolution in Russia, what Prigozhin wanted to do, a military coup. That won't happen. It will be something very quiet. Well, you know, like what happened in 1953. We'll wake up in a different country.
In the offices around the Kremlin, there's talk of a possible coup and a successor figure. and that is Prime Minister Mishustin.
It's not obvious to everyone, but Mishustin has serious ambitions. Take, for example, the fact that he's making statements about the need for a quick end to the SMO. The idea that the war needs to end is popular among many members of our elites. And the head of government wants to please many people. This is dangerous, and we will keep an eye on him.
The fact that the RF is devouring itself is already obvious, which means changes are just around the corner.
There's a feeling that some kind of massive shakeup is coming.
And it all adds up to one big picture.
Putin's rating began to collapse, and for some reason, Russian sociologists, who were essentially just hired hands for the presidential administration, grew bold and started publishing this data.
On one hand, external pressure, war, sanctions, and strikes on infrastructure. On the other, internal contradictions that can no longer be hidden even within the system itself.
There's also a feeling that it's no coincidence that various strange figures, personas, characters from the insect world, like some Z patriots or some informant named Remezlo. Some Z patriot like the former people's governor of the DNR, Pasha Gubarev, or some Bonya, I won't say what her last name rhymes with. And they're all crawling out, some terrorizing Putin, some demanding things from him, some criticizing. It's perfectly clear that someone is giving them carte blanche, someone is paying them or promising protection, promising safety in this situation.
If before the Kremlin confidently projected an image of monolithic power, where all decisions are made firmly and without hesitation, then today this structure is starting to crack.
That's all I have time to tell you for now. Next, I'm handing over the news relay to my colleagues. They are already preparing the most up-to-date news for you. In the meantime, please support us, like this video, and be sure to subscribe to the channel. It's very important to us.